Alright, this video is going to be all about drafting your very basic sleeve pattern. One without a dart at the elbow, without any shaping for the curve of the arm. It's just the very basic sloper for a custom sleeve. From this pattern or sloper that you make, you can make adjustments for other types of sleeves, other styles. You can make puff sleeves or bishop sleeves, bell sleeves, tulip sleeves, anything you want from this. So having said that, let's talk about some terminology that you need to know. So this is pretty much what a basic sleeve pattern looks like, right? This measurement is going to be the length of your arm. This is the length of your sleeve. So you want to measure from the very top of your shoulder to where you would like your sleeve to end. It's sort of arbitrary, you decide that, but it's usually where your hand meets your wrist, right? This area right here is called the cap. And how high this section is from where you have these J seams right here, this is called your cap height. Now this changes according to what style sleeve you want and what function you want out of your sleeve. The higher the cap is, the more fitted your sleeve is, and so the function of your sleeve is going to be very by your side. It's not mobile. It's as mobile as it can be. It's for like a fitted tailored jacket or something more formal. When you get into sportswear, this cap begins to look more flattened and longer. And this design will give you more fabric right here in the seam area of your armhole. So you'll have some dragging and some volume with fabric, but the objective with that type of sleeve cap is that you have a lot more mobility. It's for sportswear, sports jackets, anything active wear. Yeah, I didn't mean sportswear, I meant activewear. So this shape is going to allow your arms to move freely like this, as opposed to this higher cap where you have a more fitted and you can move your arms this way more so. It's the look that you want and the function that you want. Now, the cap of the sleeve usually has some ease in it. If it's knitwear or anything with stretch, that's when you can get away without putting any ease in the cap. And by ease, I mean there's a little bit of extra space. The measurement is a little bit more on this sleeve cap than the measurement around bodice armhole is a shorter measurement than this. And that ease is going to allow for both a better fit for comfort, but also the more ease you put in there, the more fabric you put into your cap, you can use that for different style elements like a gathered cap, a little bit of a puffy volume right there. So that's a stylistic decision that you can make when you're designing your sleeves. Another thing you should know, when you are cutting out your sleeves and also making your patterns, you use this grain line, this straight grain line, always with every pattern. You look to the grain line to position your pattern piece on your fabric, right? But sleeves have a pitch. Just like skirt, it can sway front or back. And the pitch of it, skirts and dresses, you want the side seam to be very straight up and down, and that is a proper pitch. The pitch of your sleeve also refers to how far it swings forward or back. So this pitch of your sleeve, how forward it goes, is determined by the straight grain of your fabric and where you position that in the armhole. And that's why we always put the notch about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch in front of the straight grain line. So you'll pattern your sleeve on a straight grain line, then you'll just insert the notch that you're supposed to line up with your shoulder seam. And by pushing that to the front of your sleeve, it's going to change the pitch of your whole sleeve. It's going to push it a little bit forward because we're moving that whole area back a little bit. Just remember to make that adjustment after you're done patterning the basic part of this. You want to move that shoulder seam notch that lines up with your sleeve pattern to the front part of your cap, okay? Now if you're patterning with a bodice, it's very important to have your armhole already established. Because our armholes differ from person to person, we have to make sure our armhole is correct for the body before we can even start with the sleeve. So you will notice, and this is a little more advanced on different people, you have people who stand very straight and their arms aren't going forward or backward. People slouch, people overextend their arch. So all of this makes a difference in the shape of your armhole in the bodice. So in this case, at hyperextension, you would want more fabric in the front armhole of your bodice, in the arm side, to accommodate for this. Now this is the neutral stance, where it can pretty much be equal where we normally would have fabric for our arm side. And then this opposite way, you would want more fabric to accommodate this back arm side, okay? So just know you need to have your armhole established on your bodice before you can start drafting your sleeve. So let's begin drafting the sleeve at a very basic level. This is from Helen Joseph Armstrong's pattern making book. We are going to do the very basic steps without putting a dart at the elbow. And you can do that later. You can make a two-piece sleeve out of this, whatever you want to do, but you do need to have a basic sleeve before you can do that usually. So the very first thing you want to do is get some measurements. So you want your arm length, you want the top of your shoulder down to your wrist, you want the bicep measurement, the circumference around your arm, right under your armpit, and you also want to measure the armhole lengths. So imagine where you are anticipating this seam to be on this garment that you're making, and measure exactly where the shoulder seam would be, and you would have a front measurement all the way underneath down to your side seam. Same for the back, at the very top shoulder seam all the way around your back to the side seam again. Now you need to establish how high your standard side seam comes to, because your garments are not completely pitted, what you call it. Your armhole is going to be dropped down below the pit, and that's a little bit arbitrary. This also changes the function of your garment. The more pitted it is, the more mobility you have. Think about if your fabric from your sleeve was connected all the way down here at your side seam, a very low part, then it would stop your arm from moving. It's connected right here. It's going to hinder your arm from moving. Now if it's up here, pitted almost, in dance wear where they have to have a lot of mobility, they have it higher up, and so this gives you more mobility. Now you can choose this, but just have that established before you're making your measurements, and that needs to be at a regulated area. Decide that for yourself, whether you're working on your own body, somebody else's body, or a dress form. Now the first step to drafting your pattern for a sleeve is you want to use that arm length and establish a very straight line. If you're using an alphanumeric patterning paper, just put it directly on those dots and numbers and make yourself a very long line. Let's say it's 21 inches. I'm just going to give myself a little cross mark at the top and a cross mark at the bottom. That's 21 inches. And let's label this A to B. This is A to B now. Next, we want to establish how high your cap height is. And you do this by measuring at the very top of your shoulder to the bottom of your armhole. And it's not curving around. It's not using the shape of your armhole. You're just getting the direct measurement, which in this case, it's better to use something stiff like a ruler instead of a tape measure that's going to wiggle all around. This stiff ruler is going to give me this exact height, how high it is from the shoulder, top of my shoulder, to the bottom of my armhole. And I'm going to say mine is about 7.5 inches, okay? So I would measure down on this long initial line that we made, 7.5 inches. Make yourself a little cross mark on this long initial line, and then create a very perpendicular line to establish where your cap begins. This is the cap, here is the full height of it. Let's mark this with the letter C. Now you want to use your bicep measurement. This is the measurement right around your arm, the full circumference right under your armpit. It's the thickest part of your arm. And you don't want to be tight on your skin. You want to give yourself a little bit of room. Be generous, maybe an inch, inch and a half, even 2 inches if you want a lot of room. So now put that measurement, divide it in half, and then put a cross mark on this perpendicular line that we just made. Let's say our measurement is 14 inches. I'm going to put 7 inches on either side of this line. So 7 inches and 7 inches. Now, I'm not actually using the correct measurements because I have a small area to work with, but do apply your custom measurements in this fashion. We're going to have a discrepancy in the measurements between the armhole length and the bicep lengths. And what we're going to do is just meet in the middle of those measurements, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. First, let's label each of these. This is E on this side, and this is F. Now, taking your armhole measurements for the front and the back, you want to use your straight edge, your ruler, to connect A and this bicep line at wherever the measurement takes you. So let's say my back armhole measurement is 10 inches. I want to put that 0 right at A, and then 10 inches is going to put me right here, okay? And my front would be 9, so 9 inches is going to put me right here. And it's pretty close to that measurement. And now you just split the difference between the two cross marks. We want to go right in the center of this one. This is going to be our actual length we're going to use, and right in the center of these two. Now you can connect these 2 points. Connect A to F, to E over here, and connect A to F over here. All right, and here's our front and back. Our next measurement is going to be from C to D. We're going to establish D, which is our elbow measurement. And all that is halfway in between C and B. Let's say that C and B is 16 inches. And we're going to put a mark 8 inches just right in between. So this is D. And you want to square a line perpendicular with our AB line, our initial line. So give yourself a generous line right there. This is our elbow. Now we're going to get our wrist line, which is all the way here at the bottom. And this is a simple one. You just want to take the measurement from C to E and subtract 2 inches from it. And that's what your half of your wrist is going to be. So hypothetically, let's say C to E is now 9.5 inches. Minus 2 inches would be 7.5 inches. So that's what I'm going to give myself on this wrist line down here. Seven and a half inches. Be sure that every one of these lines that you're making, these horizontal lines, are absolutely 90 degrees squared out from this vertical line. You want everything to be perfectly perpendicular. So let's label these points now, O and P. Connect now these under seam lines from E to O and from F to P. Now my shape is a little bit distorted because I don't have enough room and I'm not using actual measurements from my body or a body. So do not pay attention to the shape of this. This should not look like yours if you're actually using real measurements, okay? This is very shortened compared to what it should be. All we have to do now is determine the roundness of your cap. And you're going to use your French curve for this. And it's a very simple way we get this curve. Go ahead and divide both of these lines, line A to E and A to F, into 4 equal sections and give yourself a cross mark at each section. So 9 inches divided by 4 is going to be 2.25 inches. So you would give yourself 2.25, then 2.25, 2.25, okay? So that separated this line into 4 equal sections. Do the same for the other line. The next thing we're going to do is bring out a measurement perpendicular to this line, a very specific measurement. So you need to label all of these points that we just made. G, H, K, and then L, M, N. This line is going to be 3/8. H is going to be 3/16. K is going to be 5/8. And then conversely on the other side, L is 3/4, M is 3/16, and N is 1/2. So take these measurements and square from this line out exactly those measurements. So G is 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to give myself a 3/8 inch long line. H, 3/16. K is 5/8. L, 3/4. M, 3/16. N is 1/2. Remember, when you are making these measurements and squaring them out from this line, these 2 lower ones go inside of the line. The upper ones are outside of the line. So for instance, if our measurement for G is 3/8 of an inch, you go squared out from this line, 3/8 of an inch into the cap. These go outside of the cap. So H is 3/16, K is 5/8 outside. Same for the other side. L is out, M is out, N is inward. And this allows us to create our cap, the curve of our cap. So you take your French curve and connect these top three marks, A, L, and M. Position your French curve to where it meets all of those cross marks. And then switch up your French curve to the opposite direction where the majority of the curve is going to be for your underarm right here. Now you want to make a smooth transition connecting M, N, and F need to meet up. And you do it for the other side. You can move along your French curve until the heights of your measurement, your cross marks, meet the shape that you want. So if I had it over here, it wouldn't meet all 3 points, A, K, and H. But if I moved it a little bit more further down, it meets all 3 perfectly. And then change it opposite to meet all 3 of these points. So it will look about like that. And this is where you're going to compare your cap to the armhole in your bodice and see if the measurements add up. See if you want to add or decrease the cap ease at the top. You can change the shape slightly if you'd like a more rounder shape. But this is your basic sleeve drafting technique or method. So from this, you can make any type of sleeve you want. You can make a 2-piece sleeve. You can make a darted elbow in your sleeve. Any of the sleeves in the book are coming straight from this. Tulip, bishop, bell sleeves, puff sleeves, all of it.